Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Sharice Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. My name is Sharice Walker, and we are here yet with another episode of Unbreakable Mompreneurs. And today I'm excited because Krystal Clark, I feel like we're like these long lost sisters that have known each other. I was on her podcast a little while ago, and I'm like, you have got to come on mine because she is just a shining example of perseverance, of dedication, of commitment, and a whole lot of other stuff, talent as well. So Krystal, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Sharice. Yeah, we do. I love that. I love just networking with like-minded individuals, like-minded souls and energy and that vibe. But I am Krystal B. Clark. And I put that B in there because that's how my books author my name. Yeah. So I'm an author, a podcaster, blogger, and data management professional that has turned emotional resilience expert. And so I do a little bit of career coaching as well in there. I'm glad to be here.
I laugh because we're like the same type of person where we just have so many different irons in the fire and somehow get them all done, you know, not to mention you're a wife and a mother, right?
Oh, shoot. Yeah, I forgot about all that. Yeah. Wife and mother of 3.
Yes, you are. So tell me kind of, because you're still in the corporate world right now, right?
I am at the executive level. So it's like more accountability, but less work. You know what I mean? So it gives me some time. It gives me space.
Yes, absolutely. So more responsibility, but you've learned how to delegate and how, you know, to get people to do what you need them to do so that you can pursue your other passions. So walk us through that briefly, because we're going to get into some other stuff, but how have you built that where you have time? Because a lot of times, you know, you see people at a CEO level or something, or that C-suite level. And C-suite means your CFO, your CEO, your COO. And like, how do you make more time so that you can do stuff like this?
Sure. So I thrive off of repeatable processes. And I remember, so the way my brain works, it works off of logic. Okay. Not that everything it has to be black and white, but it's supported by facts. Right. So as I was, in my career, early years, I was really just grinding away. And then as I started to kind of climb the ladder and become a senior, a lead, a manager, and so on and so forth, I was like, why are all these managers so busy? And then I'm like, why am I so busy? And I realized that every project or anything that I did, I would always go through the same process. So instead of recreating it every time, I would start to save my work and make like little templates. Right. And I mean, I would pass that on to my team. And so I started teaching my team so that they wouldn't need me. Right. So ultimately, because that's how they grow and they want to do the work. Yeah. So it took a little bit of me kind of having to go out of, worker mode, because that's how I got to be a lead. So I figured I was going to keep doing that. And I had to train myself to say, no, we're going to turn our brain off and we're going to teach. We're going to teach and we're going to coach. We're going to mentor and bring up the new generation of leads on best practices and so on and so forth. And over time, I just accumulated a whole lot of wealth and knowledge, a breadth of experience that just crossed a whole arena of industries and scenarios, both favorable and unfavorable, and networking through a bunch of different cultures. So, working with people across the globe, remotely, in person, all of that. And I think one day I just sat down and realized, like, my husband was like, why are you still doing, you should be doing more than what you are doing right now. And I was like, no, I'm not. I don't think I'm qualified enough. Because when you see the requirements on a job, I look at that and I'm like, yeah, that's the minimum requirement. I can't present myself with the minimum. So I always would stack experience. And so I was always purposely doing it it's like self-sabotaging myself,
Mm-hmm.
applying for jobs that I was overqualified for. But I was going into them like, oh, I am actually, they would accept this out of me
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a woman. I'm a particular demographic. I'm in a minority.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt that they were going to look at me a certain way. So I actually started testing some waters and kind of saying, no, let me actually apply to jobs that I feel I deserve, that I can do, that my resume reads exactly.
Yeah.
And I got it. But that's just whatever. After that, it just took off and I never looked back. And I was like, hey, now we're going to make some time here. So give me some people. Here go
Mm-hmm.
these processes. And, let's foster creativity. And, people like to be left alone to work, to be honest with you. They
Mm-hmm.
really do.
Yeah.
And I did that. And so now I'm able to just have to have all of this extra time because I need that balance. I
Yeah.
need that. I love being a mother. So,
Mm-hmm. I love that. And, I love how you said that you didn't think you were qualified. So I was talking with a friend of mine and her husband's looking for a job right now, right? And so he's applying for this job. And I never in a million years would I'm like, wait, I'm qualified for this job, right? And so she goes, well, he didn't get it. And I said, well, how come? And so she starts telling me these things. I'm like, wait a second. I have that. I have that. I applied for this job, right? And not that I want to, because I'm happy with what I'm doing. And but yeah, these corporate executive level positions that sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot because of our like what's in between our head, not what's on paper, what we can accomplish. And I love that your husband was your cheerleader because
mhm.
my husband does it all the time. Like, Sharice, why do you keep paying these coaches? You can do this. You know how to. I'm like, well, and I'm like, oh, I am going to start coaching people because I'm going to make sure that they get the value out of it, what they, how much they're paying. Because how many times have you hired somebody where they just thank you for your money and, you're on your own? And
Yeah.
I just am not okay with that.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I love that too. I
So,
love that. If you find something, that's like the best coach though. You're like one of the ideal coaches when you said that because it's like value. You know what
right.
the value is and you actually care
Yeah.
to the point where you're like, I'm going to start my own business and give people what they deserve because I've never gotten it out of
Right.
these so it's good to kind of change the narrative and fix the process. I
Yeah.
love that.
These people that the coaches, they're more concerned about being able to buy their $2 million home. And
Mm-hmm.
how many people do I have to get as a coach? Like, is it
Yeah.
I can buy this house? No joke. Like this happened with somebody.
Really?
And I wish I would have done my research a little more. So people do your research. Don't just hire anybody. They have to know what they're talking about and be experienced in it. But yeah, there's some people out there that just can go to sleep at night thinking that they're okay with what they do and good for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that would keep me up. It really would. I would actually probably call them back and be like, you want to have another session? Like, I feel real bad.
Mhm. Yeah, I've done that where, yeah, absolutely. You have to put your money where your mouth is, and especially because people's hard-earned money, they're depending on you to
Hmm.
through. So yeah,
Well, that's what you sell, right? It's like through these few sessions, you're going to benefit from this more than me.
mhm.
That's what it should be, right? Yeah.
And
So,
integrity. So okay, so that's the executive world, setting up systems, making sure. I was listening, I just finished 10x is easier than 2x, and they talk about that, how you have somebody that you bring them in, you train them, and at the first they have to do everything, right? But when they start to get good at something and your business starts to grow, now you have them train their person so they keep the 20% that they're good at and they go like all guns a blazing on that. And then they train somebody else to take that other 80%, and that person gets trained up, and pretty soon like his business is booming. And it's because you believe in people. I was talking with somebody and they are branching out to different states, and she's like, oh, every time we go away, nobody just does anything. They just sit around.
hmm.
We can't trust them. You can't find good workers here. Really? That's a leadership issue, right?
Yep. Yep. Yes. Yes.
So how do you help people like that think that there's no good workers, no one ever, I mean, how do you get people out of that mentality?
It does come down to trust, right? So if you're in that mentality, you're actually in a micromanaging space,
Yeah.
right? You think, and I was there, right, where I was like, I like to have things done a certain way, and I didn't trust anybody to do it that way. Like the moment I gave them something and they screwed it up, instead of coaching and training them,
Yeah.
right, and mentoring them, I just took it back and was like, yeah, forget it.
Uh-huh.
Like you did it wrong, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, like the message that you just sent to that person when
Hmm.
you did that
Right.
was like, hey, you either get it right the first time or you're gonna be out the door. And it's like there's no room for growth. There's no development period. There's no, what that's what we talk about, right? Is
Hmm.
is training people to be like, I'm gonna leave this job. I would love to have you here and keep going because I'm leaving a legacy,
Hmm.
you know? So that's why I would tell people is like, but what are you leaving behind? Like when you leave,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? I get the point of when you leave, you want to make sure that they know, hey, I was irreplaceable. I was like the best worker. You had to hire three people to do my
Hmm.
one job. I get that, right? We know that you're validated in that. But wouldn't you like to leave like a legacy that whatever you left behind, it's still going,
Hmm.
even if you visit 10 years later, that they're still talking about you from this day and that day, or that you've built a network. Like some of this stuff is about networking with people. You never know when these people, the world is so small,
Hmm.
right? You never know when you're going to meet that person and the roles are reversed
Oh, I
and
know.
they're leading you. You
Hmm.
never know, you know? And so you always want to train people if you believe so heartily in what you're doing in your process, then train others to believe it too,
Yeah.
right? That's all. That's all it is.
Love that.
They're not a threat. They're not a threat.
Oh, and I think that that's the thing. And what a great compliment that, hey, I had you when I got to train you when you first got out of school, and now you're leading me. Like that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a compliment, not a, oh my gosh, oh,
Yep.
what did I do? And I think that so many people don't think about that. And again, listening to this book, I think it was Dan Sullivan, he said that when he goes on a vacation for 2 weeks, he goes on a vacation. Nobody's allowed to call him. You have to deal with it. And
Yep.
that if when I come home and there's some issues, we're going to have a conversation. But we absolutely, my kids are yelling at each other, but we absolutely are not going to make sure, like, it's not going to happen again. And if it does, then we definitely need to have another conversation because you're not learning from your mistakes. But I thought, what an incredible example of trust, and that it's like, figure it out, deal with it. I think that you can do better. And then he also says, hire people that are better at this thing than you are, because you can't be
Yes.
everything, right? You can't be
Yes.
a good house cleaner. If I turn my computer around right now, my office, you can't be like this perfect house cleaner and this perfect mother and this
Nope.
perfect, like, in shape, everything's perfect everywhere, and especially after you have lots of kids, and you just can't do it all. You can't. And so if you can hire somebody to do different things that are passionate about those things, more power to you, and
Hey,
also
man.
helping someone else.
Oh, yes. I'm a full-blown believer in that. I'm a full-blown, like, I was like, one, if you gave me the opportunity to learn what this person does, I don't even want to do that,
Yeah.
right? Like, let them have that. That is their space.
Right.
Let them go. Like, I am the highest, like, I'm like always raising my hand first. Give me a team, give me a team, give me somebody who's
Yeah.
really proficient in X, Y, and Z, really proficient in here, right? Because we're building a machine, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
You're right. You're right. I think everybody has their value and everyone has their niche, and they
Right.
should be hired to explore that and build on that, you know?
I look at it as just as my kids, every single one of them is different. So different. There's no cookie cutter kid in my house, right? And so same thing with employees as well. Okay, so we talked about business. Now let's talk about your book, or books. So what are your books about?
So I have, oh, you know what? Let me just say they're all about emotional resilience. That
Okay.
is the underlying theme of all of them for sure. And they all deal with certain, triggers or issues of society today.
Mhm.
So I have a fantasy series and then I have a business self journey book. So the fantasy series is just, I mean, it literally is fantasy, but it's a huge focus on the character. Like the characters themselves, what they go through, the insecurity of abandonment, or
Mhm.
something happened in the past as a father or a mother that they wish they could have done, the things that they do, or accepting their role in a relationship. Like, when people are like in politics and stuff like that, and their spouses, that's hard.
Mhm.
That's really hard. And they go in that knowing certain things, right? And I think it takes a very special person to do that. And so the fantasy just kind of goes through that, right? It just kind of just takes you through all of that. And I've had really good feedback that when I said that, they were like, yes, all of that comes through. I'm like, really? Did you get it?
Mm.
And then my business self journey book is basically how I transcended emotional intelligence into emotional resilience and how that
Mhm.
basically translated across from the professional realm into my personal life. So I kind of created this like guiding principles of life in general and dealing with that and being emotionally resilient. And so the one thing that I really want to clarify is like everyone's saying, well, what's the difference between emotional intelligence and emotional resilience? So if I can look at it from like, like I said, I'm in the data world. When you look at reports, they tell you something different. So I look at emotional intelligence as saying, okay, this is what happened, what has happened, like in the past, and this is what's happening now.
Mhm.
That's emotional intelligence, in my opinion. Emotional resilience is okay, if I want to change and alter the past or alter the future, these are the steps I need to change. These are the things that I need to do, right? Or it would say, if you continue on the same path, this is what your future is going to continue to look like, right? And in between that, on how you get from one to the other, is what went wrong. Why did it go wrong?
Mhm.
Right. And that gets you to that basically helps you cross that bridge. And so that's what I basically did in this book was uncover my journey in this huge IT consulting firm where I just had to claw myself up to the top.
Mhm.
And I did this for 8 years. And in each year, I learned something new and I grew in each year. And I just shared those experiences over that time. I loved it. I love it.
That's cool. I'm excited. So what are the names of the books?
Okay. So the fantasy series is, hold on. Fantasy series is Balance of Power. That's book one name. And the series is called the Chosen Path series. And then my business memoir, it's Embrace the Code. And there's a tagline like navigating emotional resilience in a tough IT culture. So, you know what I mean? I feel like the subtitle is so long. I'm like, oh no. But I
Oh,
do like Embrace the Code because, like, I like that.
yeah, no, mine is way longer, right? I worked actually with, Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul, and then Rich Dad Poor Dad, and oh my gosh, who is the other one? Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus. So
Mm.
the person that helped, like if you go back to the stories, Rich Dad Poor Dad, especially, Robert Kiyosaki had all these books in his garage and no one was buying them. And his wife goes to this guy named Steve Harrison and says, hey, like we need to get these books out of our garage. You got to help us. And so Steve Harrison's like, okay, great. So I hired Steve and
Oh,
I'm like, Steve, I need a different topic because originally it was flipping the iceberg from trauma to triumph. And
yep.
after I'd written this whole book and it's to the editor, the designer, actually, I'm like, I gotta change the subtitle because I didn't want it to be just about trauma because it's not. That's half of the book, but the other half is like how to make sure that you uncover your person and in a relationship. And so he like gives me this whole tagline and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's freaking long. But it's true. So I'm like, nope, I'm gonna just follow the guide. He is like the Yoda of the book industry. And so, I mean, it just published last week, but I'm
Oh,
excited to
congratulations.
see. But it's true, like discovering and celebrating what lies beneath the surface in your relationships. I mean, it's a long tagline, but it's true.
True. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
And I have to be honest with you, I was happy that you were kind of like, what's the title? Because after you write the book, like for me, it was 2 years of my life just working so many hours every single day or every single week. And then someone's like, okay, well, what's in it? And I'm like, I don't know. Like I've read it so many times and I've edited it like so many times. It's hard to remember after.
It is. It is. I'm glad you said that too.
So it's
I
like,
was like, I was really about to have it like plastered on like a piece of paper so I could read right off of it because I was like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna remember this.
I like that. You're a data person, so it makes the code.
Hmm.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good topics. Well, okay, so you have overcome a lot of emotional turmoil and trauma, and we got into that on your podcast, but and I don't want to share it if you don't want to, but a lot of people could turn that what you experienced. Do you want to share real quick as a child?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was molested by a family member as a child at a very young age. And it was a family member who was also a child who was a year younger than me. I think it was a year. Maybe it might have been two. But I had carried this shame with me because I was the older. It was another child. My parents had just poured into me all of this, independence. You're so strong and this and that. And I was. I
Mhm.
was for a really good time. And just in that moment, this person stole just a lot from me. They
Yeah.
took a lot as far as my self-confidence. They because I didn't feel I was beautiful. I felt that that was my value. That right there, just the parts of my body. And I just went through a lot of my teenage years, and went into college thinking nobody's gonna love me.
Mhm.
No one's going to look at me and say, "Wow, she's pretty," you know. And so I dealt with that. Developed anxiety, and in order for me to quote unquote be myself and just be comfortable with who I was, I became an alcoholic. So throughout my college years, I was like, I mean, really, like I was really an alcoholic. I would drink throughout the day. People couldn't tell, you know, and I would always, I mean, it was just crazy until my body just basically started rejecting the alcohol in my junior year, thankfully. Otherwise, I just would be struggling right now to this day. And that was my saving grace. Beyond the oops baby, my
Mhm.
number one baby.
Never an oops. Always a
Yeah, you're right. You're right, girl. Yeah.
maybe the method was a little different, but it wasn't an oops. Like,
Yeah.
they come for certain reasons and certain times. So
Yeah.
my daughter, who's my number five, I was in my first marriage, and like I get emotional with this. I'm emotional lately. I don't know what's going on with me. So my listeners probably, I'm like bawling all the time, but um I with my twins, like I knew that I would have twins a year and a half before I had twins. Right?
Mm.
And so then my next one, I knew like when my twins were 18 months, I knew I was going to have a girl. It's woo woo, I know, but it's for reals. And I didn't know what I should name her. Like she came home from the hospital without a name because nothing sounded right. And when I was in the hospital recovering with her, I knew I would have a boy and his name was Jacob. Right. And so I'm like, okay, well, I have Adrian and Anthony. Now I have to have Jacob, and it has to start with a J. So my
Uh-huh.
daughter, 3 years older, got her name because of my son, who was 3 years in the future. And then, so now
Wow.
I'm like facing divorce. And I knew that I was supposed to have this girl named Melissa. Like she haunted me. I'd go out to the garage, hear, hi, mom. And I'd look around, nobody's there. And so I'm like, Melissa. And so she haunted me. So I, for reals, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I'll say it anyway because I'm open. I was gonna try to get pregnant with the husband that I knew we were on our way out, but I knew that I
Mhm.
was supposed to have her, and I didn't know what I should do. Luckily, it didn't work out with him. Phew. But we're talking 8 years later, I have Melissa, and then honestly, I had another one after that, and so it's just interesting how these like children come to you, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's not the most culturally way, but he's not an oops. He's for reals.
Yeah.
Supposed to
Thank
be yours.
you.
Um,
Thank you.
and a lot of people, for you to go through alcohol, for you to go through molestation, for you to go through the shame and the guilt, because we've talked about this as well with my past, that so many things you could become a victim. And I hear so many when I'm in these groups of people and I talk with them, like one person, she's writing a book about all the evils that this religion did to her. And I'm like, I don't think it was the religion that did it to you. I think it was the people that was in that religion. Let's focus on
Mm-hmm.
that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and so people have a tendency to like hyper focus on these things that really like, let's change that. And they want to become this victim. And so their whole identity is wrapped into this thing that happened to them. And
Mm-hmm.
you got out of that. And I
Oh
just think
yeah.
it's so amazing. And you talk about it and you help other people with it as well. So that's
Yeah.
even better.
It helps.
So when it comes to family and marriage, has it been easy juggling all this?
No, let's just say that. I'm like a really active mom, so I will like I'm the mom, and I think this is so typical of moms, but I will eat last, I will get dressed last, like everything everybody comes first. Like I prioritize my children and everything before that. So when I was working, I was traveling like Monday through Thursday.
Oh,
And I would get phone calls from my husband during the week, like, where are the shoes? Where are this and that? And I'm like, I could tell him where things were, you
yeah.
know? I
Mhm.
would be cooking, Sunday so they could have food all through the week. I would call them and say, make sure they go here, make sure they go here. I remember just really just like being very overwhelmed. Like my head was going a million miles a minute. It was just crazy. And after a while, I just started saying, because I was doing finances too. Like I was making sure bills were getting paid. I was like, no, you're gonna do that, husband, you know?
Mhm.
And then after a while, I started telling the job, like, okay, do you guys really need me here the full days?
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, no, we can work something out. So I started like making room for me, making room for that, right? Because I think if we tend to just stand on what we are and keep doing because we think that's what we're supposed to do, because we're scared to take the risk, we're scared to ask, we're scared to demand,
Yeah.
the space. And when you do it, it's like it wasn't really that hard to begin with. So
Right.
now I'm thinking about all this other time, all these years. I'm like, man, I could have been done this, you know? And that's one of the things that I tell people when I coach them, because I'll say, no, you have to demand that. Like you have to put a block in your calendar. And one of my clients was like, well, they show that, right? I go, no, I, I don't. They keep saying yes. I'm gonna keep giving them work
Mhm.
because they have not suggested that, right? So that's what I say is like I was like, no, it's not their job to know that you're supposed to have mental health. It's your job to create that boundary
Yeah.
and to make room for yourself. And
Mhm.
like, oh, yeah, don't put that on anybody else. Yeah.
Well, and I like that because I think there's a little bit of trust too. Because when we're like these overachiever people, we tend to not
Mm,
want to trust because it's not going to get done right. But the fact that you told your husband, you know what, you're in charge of the bills, not me.
yep. Yeah, we
Uh,
had to go through that. That was a little shaky. Well, he pays differently than the way that I do.
yeah,
I
right.
stagger the cost. He will pay everything
At the same
on the
time.
first of the month. And I'm like, dude, no wonder like we don't have any money. I'm like, that's not how you do it.
Yeah,
It just took a minute. But I was like, I'm not taking it back.
right, right. No, I love that. Well, and I think so. Last week my husband's like, honey, come with me. Okay. So I don't know why, because I couldn't walk, hurt my feet. I have a tendency to be a little clumsy. And so he goes into the store. I wait in the truck. And so then he's like, what do you want to do for dinner? I said, well, I can make something. He goes, well, yeah, but it's going to be this, da, 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 da. So he's like, I want to just go try something new. And I said, okay, great. So he goes to this pizza place that I had mentioned in passing and like super expensive pizza. But I chose, like, he goes, what do you want? I said, I'll take whatever you want. I don't care. I'm good with whatever. And so he's like, ah. So he gets upset with that because he's expecting me to get angry that you
Mm.
didn't get the right kind of pizza or you didn't do this or you didn't do that. I'm like, not, I don't care. Like, I have food at home. Like, I don't need to eat it. So you get what you want. And then he like buys this super expensive pizza. And the old me would have said, like, what the heck? Why didn't you? There's this $5 pizza right over there or whatever. I just chose to embrace it and say, fantastic. He's like, that was expensive. I'm like, it's good. I'm sure it'll be fantastic. He's like, what is wrong with you? And it's like, I'm not going to make all the decisions in my life anymore, in my household. I want him to feel like he has control of this just as much as I have control. And for so many years, I'm so used to taking it all on because I did before he came into the picture that I'm like, like all these kids are gone now that I had to take care of. They're gone. These kids are yours. You have as much say as I have. So you get to make decisions. And it's interesting because I think he's enjoying it, but he's worried. And he's waiting for me to go, but you didn't do this or you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm. Like, no, thank you. I'm great.
Yeah.
If you want to spend $100, he didn't, but I'm
Yeah.
giving an example. $100 on a pizza? Okay. I'll just, fix it later. It doesn't matter. Like it's so many
Yeah.
things lately that we get so caught up in all these little details of things that don't matter. Like, is it really worth a battle over? And in my opinion, no, there's very few things that are. And so this stuff, it's
Yeah.
fine. This
Yeah.
stuff, okay, that matters. We probably should have a conversation, but this stuff, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. I like how you said that in the other conversation we had. You're like,
Mhm.
sometimes we get in our own way, you
Yeah.
know? I
Mhm.
really like that. I thought about that as I was editing. I was like, oh my, that was real right there. It was good. You said it again just now. Love it.
I think it's just you, Crystal.
It's us. Let's
Right,
work that.
right. All right. So, my question for you is if you were sitting on a park bench with your 19-year-old self, and when I ask this question, people tend to go to the I regret stage. That's not what I'm asking for. There's no regrets in life, things happen for reasons. So, what advice would you give that 19-year-old self? That now you know what you know, what would you say to that person?
I would say this is probably like I think a direct quote from my book, but it's commitment propels the journey. Capacity is what sustains it.
Okay.
So make sure, as like, because you have everything you need to be successful. Everything. The problem will happen is when you start to basically not create the room. You let other things distract you and take up the space, that loses your focus on that journey. So just remember, right, to
Say
make
it one
room.
more time. Say it one more time.
I would say the whole thing.
No, just that quote.
Oh, okay. Commitment. Wait a minute. Oh, yeah. Okay. Commitment propels the journey.
Mhm.
Capacity is what sustains it.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta make room for you. You gotta just make room for you. Really.
It's very true. And I think that, I mean, you can literally apply that in every single aspect of your life because commitment, although sometimes it's difficult to commit to that, 2 weeks, no sugar. But capacity. So maybe what I need to do is like throw all the sugar out, right? But it's not just that. I mean, it's capacity in any situation because it's not just if you don't have that capacity, go find that capacity
Mm-hmm.
to that commitment.
Mm-hmm. Very much. Very much.
It's so true. I think when we first talked, I was training for a marathon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bad things happened to my legs and I had to take 8 weeks off. And so I'm finally now where I can start again. So yes, I'm not, and then my physical therapist tells me don't train, just go out and run it. I'm like, what kind of advice is this? Like, I almost broke or fractured my tibias, like running 8 miles. Now you want me to do 24 without training. This isn't smart. Um, anyway, okay, how can you do that? And maybe I had to adjust my goal. I'm not going to be running it in July, but I will run it before the end of this year. I will. And so
Yeah.
it's just how do you do that? And your capacity, you might have to continue to accumulate to be able to accomplish the goal that you want.
Right. Right.
I love
Oh,
that.
that's a good analogy. You were hilarious, girl.
Yeah, like I said, it's only you. All right. So anything else you want us to know that I did not ask you?
I think no, no. Y'all can come check me out on
Yes.
movingwithmeaning.com and find all my work and stay up to date with me. That's
And
it.
that was the next question is how do they find you? So moving with meaning, right?
Yeah, you get all my socials are up there, YouTube channels, all that good stuff there.
That's
Yeah.
great. Well, Crystal, it's been a pleasure. I have missed you. So I'm glad that you came on.
Thank you. Me too. Me too.
Unbreakable moms, I just want you to think about this. As Crystal gave some advice, she gave a ton of advice. So go back and listen to it again and reach out to her. It really is Her podcast is fantastic. And I think that when you're thinking about yourself and you're thinking about the things that overwhelm and things that are keeping you from doing what you really want to accomplish, which is the whole goal of this podcast, is finding your purpose and making sure that, get rid of the negative baggage and get rid of the things that that are not serving you well, and stop being this victim and get out of that and just go find your passion and do it. Get started. Commitment is one thing she talked about. Commit and then find your capacity so that you can sustain it. So Krystal, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Sharice Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Sharice Walker.